at this new tool I got. Hello and welcome to the channel, where I turn video games into glass. This time, I'll be making art of a piece of art in a game. This is the Cheesewater canvas from 2 Point Hospital. I use regular scissors to cut up to the paper pattern outline. Then I use 3-bladed scissors to cut out the actual pieces. So I've looked through all my glass to see what colors I have available that would best match what the Cheesewater canvas looks like. The only 2 colors that I'm having problems with is the purple and the orange. Now in the game, the purple is much brighter. However, out of all my purple glass, I don't really have a color as vibrant as what shows up in-game. The best I have is this one, which is left over from my Super Smash Bros. Build, because it has this iridized coating on it if you look at it at a certain angle. But if you look at it, you know, head on, I mean, it's a little bit hard to see here, but basically only one side has the iridized coating and the other doesn't. And when you put it up to the light, this was the brighter out of all the purples I had, so I'm gonna have to go with this one. As for the orange, I kind of had 2 different choices. There was this orange, which in-game it kind of looks like almost an amber rather than an orange. So I had this glass, but the main problem is that it's textured. Now I don't remember what the texture is called with this. And while it does match better than this orange, I'm not really a huge fan of the texture. Usually when I do a project, I try and figure out whether I'm going to use textured glass or whether I'm going to use no texture or very little texture. And because all these other pieces basically have very little to no texture, having this one piece be this textured, in my opinion, kind of break up the flow of the piece, I guess you could call it. So that's why I'm going to end up going with this kind of orange. The camera does make it look like an amber, but in real life it's like actually orange. And this is the problem with glass and cameras. It's always better in person than through a photo or a video. This glass is a mix of opaque and semi-transparent, I guess. The yellow, gray, and cyan are opaque, while the rest of the other colors are transparent to semi-transparent. I glue the pattern onto the pieces of glass using Elmer's glue. Using a glass cutter and glass pliers, I cut as close to the pattern as I can and break the glass. This dark blue glass ended up not breaking in nice pieces. Instead, it just crumbled and shattered everywhere, making a bit of a mess. Oh look, I've already cut myself. So I probably could have done better on the cutting, so I didn't have to grind so much, but I'm fine with it. The grinder is used to smooth out the cuts and refine the shape. I have a habit of leaving a little more glass on the edges than I should. It's mostly because I want a little more wiggle room when grinding. Sure, it takes longer to grind, but it's better than over-grinding, which I have done. I started playing 2 Point Hospital when one of the channels I watch, Outside Xbox, started streaming the game. The premise of the game revolves around managing a hospital and becoming profitable under various scenarios. It's in the same vein of games where you micromanage literally everything. When I unlocked the Cheesewater canvas as an item and displayed it in-game, I immediately thought that this would look great as fused glass. But even though I did recently buy a kiln, I haven't figured it out well enough to start making videos involving fused glass. It gets a bit complicated, but the simple answer is that fused glass and stained glass are not the same. I need to buy all new glass that is made for fusing and keep it separated from my stained glass. So I've decided to turn the Cheesewater canvas into stained glass first, then used fused glass sometime in the future. So I'm pretty happy with this so far. Now it's on to foiling. So this is a new tool that I got called table foil, and it's supposed to help you be able to foil glass a lot easier. I know I probably mentioned in previous videos about how foiling is the most tedious process, I think, to me, so I don't really enjoy it as much as the other parts of the process. So I figured, well, why not give a table foiler a try? Because up until then, I've been hand foiling, and that does work. You don't necessarily need a table foiler, but I kind of just wanted to try it out and see how it works kind of compared to hand foiling. This is a horizontal one, so you put your glass, here, and then it foils like that. There is a vertical style one, but I wasn't sure I'd like that, so I opted for the horizontal one. There are 3 different wheels according to the more common foil widths. This one's the 3/16. This is the 1/4. And then I've got the 7/32 on here because that is the foil width I use the most. Wrap the foil around this post and separate the backing from the foil. Only the foil goes into this slot. Then wrap the foil around the wheel. There's a groove in the wheel where the foil sits. This little peg helps get the foil into the groove, though I had to fiddle with it to get it to work. This wing nut allows the height of the wheel to be adjusted to accommodate different glass thicknesses. So if the glass is too thick, I'd want to switch to a wider foil width, which would mean setting up the whole thing again. Alternatively, hand foiling would probably be faster. I line up the yellow piece in the middle of the wheel as best I can and begin foiling. I push the glass up against the wheel as I rotate it. The foil that sticks out on the top and bottom of the glass is folded over by the edges of the wheel, and the bottom is further pressed down by the table. I cut the excess foil and look at the result. Not bad, but I still have to burnish the foil and trim the excess that sticks out. And I mean, it can be a little difficult to get the foil centered on the wheel, but once you get it going, it works fine. Okay, so now that I've foiled all the pieces using the table foiler, they don't look too bad. Another thing that I do need to practice on is figuring out where the center of the foil is in relation to the thickness of the glass. Because some of these are pretty much dead center, and others are kind of not. So you know how I use an X-Acto knife to, cut the corners and then fold the foil over? Since this thing already kind of folds the foil over a little bit, there isn't really a need to do that, but it actually kind of does a pretty decent job of folding the foil over without me having to cut the corners. It does take a little bit of getting used to kind of rotate the glass on here, and I think this part is kind of sloped downwards to try and help that foil when you're rotating the piece to kind of help fold it over. I don't know how I feel about that. It's kind of a little bit annoying, but for the most part, the foiling actually came out pretty good. So the challenge mainly is lining up the thickness of the glass with the center of the foil as it's on the little spool. But I actually don't mind using this. I mean, it'll take more practice to really get a feel of, how to do it. But for my first attempt using this, I actually kind of like it. I did struggle with this piece a little bit because of how small it is. And again, smaller pieces or like really complicated shaped ones, you'd still want to do by hand rather than using something like a table foiler. I need to buy one of those framing squares to help make sure the sides are even with each other. I tried doing it by eye, but it was still a little off. I use push pins to make sure the pieces won't move before I can tack the pieces together. This is where the footage of me soldering would go. However, my camera had other ideas and didn't save the footage of me soldering. So instead of being able to show you a problem I encountered, I'll try my best to paint you a picture. I didn't realize until I was about to solder that there's a joint that runs along the entire vertical length of the project. Since this is an almost one-to-one of the Cheesewater canvas, there wasn't anything I could have changed at this point to make it work. So instead, what I did was add copper wire along here, here, and here to strengthen the joint. If this was fused glass, I wouldn't have to worry about joints. Once everything cools down, I wash the finished project with water and dish soap, then dry it off. I thought I'd try using a toothbrush instead of a sponge to clean this. And it did work well, until it started spreading the flux rather than brushing it off. So I ended up going back to the sponge. Since I hadn't soldered in about 2 months, I was a little rusty. The lines could have been better, but I think they are okay. They'll be turned black anyway, so it's fine. If this were fused glass, I wouldn't have to worry about soldering. I use a patina made specifically for lead that will change the solder from silver to black. I then clean off the excess patina with water. The final thing I do is apply wax to slow down the natural oxidation process. If you want to know more, I have a tutorial playlist where I explain each step in more detail. This is the first non-video game looking thing from a video game I've ever made. I'm really happy with how this turned out. Nothing was too difficult, and this would make for a nice beginner project. I can't wait to make this in fused glass, because I know the colors will match better than they do here. Plus, I'll be able to start making fused video game glass, which is completely different from stained glass. Like, share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you would like to see me make down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all through the next pane.